All right. How's everyone doing? I don't have a lot of time, right? Very tight schedule here. So it'll be 45 minutes, and I have some things planned. We'll talk about different things. If we had a bigger space, we might try to play some games, but clearly we don't have a very big space. All right. So really what I want to talk about today is kind of how things have changed over the last 20 years or so, depending on when you started teaching, depending on where you're coming from in different aspects of it. But really, these are the types of kids that we have all the time, right? So I still teach physical education, I teach elementary school, and I talk to my second graders, what do they do when they go home? They're on TikTok, they're on their phones, so they're on a phone or an iPad. And a lot of those kids are doing that and they're not being active. So how do we get those kids and pull them in? And I saw this quote over here by Jackie Robinson. Take a second and read it, okay? A life is not important except in the impact that it has on other lives. And a lot of times as coaches, and if you're a phys ed teacher or a different thing, you have a position, power, and platform unlike anyone else in a school district, right? You're with kids more, right? You have a different platform because you can talk to them at different levels, and then you have a different aspect that you can do a lot of stuff. So you have the ability to change a lot of lives, and this is kind of some of the ways that we can do it, and we kind of have to flip kind of how we've been thinking about stuff for the last couple of years, okay? Whoop. Went too far. I have my phone because it's supposed to be like my thing and it has my notes, so I might jump around on accident. Sometimes if I touch it, it's a little touchy. All right, so this is me, family, and staff. So I've been teaching since 2006. I started off teaching phys ed in Brooklyn, New York, in probably an empty classroom that was this size. That was, like we talk about New York City and people talk about, how to teach phys ed. This is where I taught phys ed first with an empty space. And they're like, here's 30 kids, good luck. No equipment, nothing. So you have to be flexible, you have to be creative, right? And over the years, we had our first daughter 10 years ago, that's Nellie. And then we decided to move back. I'm from Utica, I went to Proctor High School, and then I went to Ithaca and played football. And that's where I learned all my phys ed stuff. And then we had her, and then we moved back upstate, and that's when I got into more training stuff. I started my own CrossFit gym at first, and then we've expanded into now we're like a 7,000 square foot sports performance facility where we also train adults. We have like 30 yards of turf, and we have a bunch of stuff that you'll see some of the videos of the athletes we work with. I still teach phys ed, I still coach football, and I still run the gym. And this is some of my staff. Girl Christina's in there, Riley, who's helping me out over here. Some phys ed teachers, right? So Christina's a phys ed teacher, Kelly's a phys ed teacher. We played football together in college. He played college football. So a lot of our staff, she played field hockey in college. So a lot of the staff that we have are also athletes who've kind of come up, and it's a lot of fun to have them work with other athletes and work with adults too. All right? But so really the purpose of showing you this is because I'm doing what you're doing, right? I'm in the same place you are. I'm doing similar things that you are, and just trying to find ways to get kids engaged and have kids have fun so they come out and play the sports. Because I find a lot of times we're losing kids because it's not as fun as playing on their phone all night or doing stuff like that. So we want to be able to pull them in some way. And the ways that we do it is getting them away from this. Okay, so my first year of teaching was 2006. There weren't iPhones yet, all right? There were smartphones, but it wasn't like a thing. And then, now 20 years later, you're going to see some statistics in a second, but where our competition is this, right? This is our competition a lot of times of getting kids active. So if we look at some basic stats from Boston Magazine, like 23% of teenagers had access to a smartphone in 2011. Now 95% of them, if not more, right? This is a couple years ago, have access to a smartphone, okay? 40% kids aged 8 through 12, right? We're using it in 2011. Now 95% of kids are on social media. 95% of 8 to 12-year-olds are on social media, right? That's wild, that's bizarre, right? And then if you look at like teenage years, girls are spending about 5.5 hours on their phone, and boys are a little bit less, with about 4.5 hours, 13 to 19. So they're spending that much time on social media just hanging out, not being active, not doing certain things. And this is our competition as sport coaches, right? This is your competition. It's not other sports. It's not other things that are pulling. This is pulling them away from being the active, youthful people that they used to be, okay? So these are some of the challenges that we face. These are the modern challenges. Because now, instead of going out and playing like independently, like maybe some of us did as kids, or we grew up and we went out in the backyard and played catch, or I used to have a crabapple tree in my yard. We had a stop sign. My brother, all the crabapples that fell, we'd try to hit the stop sign 100 times, and just throw and do different things, play in the playground, go on bike rides, all these sorts of things that I did as a kid. We're not doing that. And these kids they're playing club sports. Everything is structured and organized. Free play has been proven time and time again to be the best way that kids kind of like learn and develop. And we've taken that away from them and put this in front of them, right? And now they're sitting there and they're just looking at stuff and they're watching TikTok, things they probably shouldn't see at a young age. And it's kind of pulling them away from being athletic as well. Athletes are skipping developmental stages because the club sports thing is so big and such a moneymaker for a lot of people, that kids are going from like not even, well, I should say basic locomotor movements, right? If you teach elementary school or you see those kids, like a lot of kids can't skip. I think it was funny, like Riley had talked about, there was a funny meme, have you ever seen your coworker sprint, right? And I think there was one a couple years ago, like having your family skip, right? And they were showing how people can skip. And now if you did it in your sixth graders or your eighth graders or your 11th graders, can they all know how to do it? They all know how to skip or gallop or do like basic things, bear crawl. Right? Can they do these basic things that you just would take for granted? And then we're trying to teach them how to do these complicated skills in their sport. So they're skipping these stages that they should have already had, but they're not doing it. And then I think I saw a stat recently that 70% of kids quit sports by 13. 70% by 13 years old. Right? Because they're burnt out, because they're traveling, they're competing too much, everything is so serious, there's not fun anymore. Right? And then parents are spending so much money for travel and low value showcases. Okay, so we talk with athletes, and this is kind of some of the battles that we have too in both our athletes in school, as well as the athletes who come and try to train with us, that they're always being pulled in all these different directions, and they don't know, and the parents don't know, kind of like where they should fall and what they should be working on. So a lot of different things there to think about. All right? So how has it affected your movement in sports? Your kids, right? You get a lot less of this, a lot less free play, a lot less tag, things like that. Are there any positives of having all this extra access to social media and phones and things like that? I can't find a lot. As I was doing some of the research, I have, like I said, I have a 10-year-old, I have a 7-year-old, I have a 2-year-old. And there's this movement now to, I forget how they phrased it, but not to give your children phones until they're in 8th grade. I forgot what the actual, they had a nice rhyming thing that made sense. But we told my daughter we were going to give it to her after 6th grade, but now I was like, well, maybe we're not giving it to you until after 8th grade. She didn't like that, but well, my friends have it. I'm like, well, sorry, we're going to kind of keep them away from it, because what I find in elementary school even is 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, all the drama they have is from Snapchat or from other nonsense that they're using on their phone, because it's like your phone has become recess, but there's no adults monitoring it. Okay? And that's where they get into all the trouble, and they come into school and then they're having drama because of something somebody said on the phone last night, and they come in and start fights like as soon as they come in the building. It's kind of wild. And that's the consequence, right? Kids are having trouble communicating with each other, right? They're dropping out. And then if you think about the actual athletic part, everyone in here can probably know or name at least one girl who plays soccer who's had an ACL injury. Okay? I have athletes who are getting stress fractures in their femur, who are track athletes. So you have athletes who are having torn labrums in their hip and their shoulder and all these different things. And many of those things come from overuse and repetitive injuries of doing those sports over and over and over again at a young age before they're fully developed. So that's also a case for having athletes do multiple sports to get different varieties of movements and different things like that as well. And then what's our role as physical education teachers or coaches, right? My goal a lot of times is to keep athletes healthy, right, and have them enjoy movement, right? Because if we think about like long term, it's getting harder and harder. I posted something yesterday on my social media, and then one of our members sent me something else, is that coaches aren't even recruiting high school kids to go to college anymore. Because the way that the NIL is working and the way that the transfer portals are working, like if I'm in a Division I program, I'm taking somebody from a Division III program or a junior college. If I'm at a junior college, I'm doing this, and then there's this trajectory now because they can pull kids who, one, they know that they can handle the rigor of college education. 2, they know that they can compete and be coachable. So it's less of a risk for them to take a kid and pull him up into a college rank than to give a high school kid that they don't know their rigor, they don't know if they know how to work hard. And they want, like, I posted, the post I made yesterday was about how, like, colleges are looking for grown men and women who already can compete right now. They're not looking for, like, a high school kid that they have to develop. They're looking for somebody that they can bring in right now and work. And that's where we're at. So why not just make it fun? Why not just make it enjoyable instead of trying to think of, like, well, you can go to college and do this, you can do that. Maybe, but why not in the process of doing that, just make it as enjoyable as possible and try to keep them healthy. One of the things I used to hate walking around the high school is seeing, like, a girl walking around with crutches. Like, how is that next 6 months of her, like, social life? Like, can she go to the movies? Is it easy? Is it easy going to class back and forth? Is it easy going to a football game where she got to go up to bleachers and stuff like that? So, like, how can we keep these guys healthy and these girls healthy as we go through it? All right? So best coaches aren't just planning practice and coming up with tactics. They're designing environments that trick athletes into giving more effort. Okay? And you do that by making it fun. Right? How many of you have tried to get somebody to work harder? All of you, right? All right? I do it all the time. We try to get athletes to work harder, to push harder, and we just kind of talk to them and try to be like motivate them or do different things. But the easiest way to do it is to trick them. All right? Right? That's the easiest way to do it. And we do it at the gym, and I'll show you how we do it a couple different ways. Oh, I went too far. Oh, go back. All right? So here's how we do it. These are the kind of 4 things that we do to kind of do it. We gamify stuff, right? So we take this idea of, like, the phone and technology and video games, and we try to gamify things in the gym. We have leaderboards. Right? We put up scores, we have them compare each other, and we compete. We use some technology, right? We have jump mats, we did timers yesterday, and then we have games where we have creative constraints. So we play, like, handball, or we play basketball, or we do these little games inside of our gym space to make everything fun. All right? And just some simple things you're going to see in a second, like, how are your warm-ups? I've seen soccer teams do the same warm-up they come to camp on August 19th through November. And the kids, after 2 weeks, they're doing this as their hip openers. They don't look motivated. They're not getting warmed up. They're not doing things. Football teams doing the same static stretching routine they've been doing since 1985, right? So how can we make our warm-ups more interesting, right? Kids just sat around all day. Most of the time, right? They sat around in a classroom for 6 hours, sometimes engaged, sometimes not engaged. Sometimes they come to practice and they're already, like, sluggish. So what can we do to kind of bring the energy level up and make them engaged and have fun? As football coach, I try to give a different warm-up every day, to keep them on their toes, to do different things, whether it's games or just different drills and movements, but just to get them engaged. They never know what's happening, and it's never like the same routine, and it doesn't get methodical or boring. Sure, for game day, we kind of rehearse that on Friday, and then we have games on Saturdays, and we do, like, a dress rehearsal. But other than that, every other day has, like, a different warm-up. And you're going to see some national level caliber teams doing different stuff. How do you do your practices? How's your conditioning? If you do conditioning drills, are they always the same thing? Are you always doing a mile test? Or are you always doing, shuttle runs? Or can you make it more interesting? Can you make it fun? Can you make them work harder? And can you trick them into doing things that are a little different? All right? This is something super simple. And you're going to see these are 2 Division I soccer, they were in high school, but they're now Division I soccer players. They're about to be seniors in college, which makes me feel old. She goes to Albany and she goes to Bryant. And they're doing a footwork drill, and they're going to do, like, a classic hand slap drill, right? And they're just having fun. They're warming up, right? They're getting a little footwork drill. They're warming up their brain, and we have athletes doing it all the way down. We just have the dot there to give them an idea to kind of do stuff. But they're having fun. They're moving, right? They're getting active, and they're going to warm up, and it takes 30 seconds, right? And then you can rotate through a partner. You can do different things. But that's just one real simple example of how we do it. So this is inside of the gym, right? We're working on speed, right? We're working some speed and agility stuff here. And we love to play tag or do racing type stuff. So she's going to slap her hands, and that's the go signal. She has to turn and run. She has to tag her before she gets to 10 yards. Again, just ways to get athletes to compete, right? Gamify stuff, right? Move, see how fast they are, right? The reaction time. And all different levels, all different sports here. They're field hockey lacrosse girls. field hockey, lacrosse. He's a lacrosse guy. Some football guys in there. All athletes are different thing, and it's a real easy way, again, we're getting sprint work, we're getting speed work in, but we're making it fun. It's not just, all right, let's do a 10-yard sprint, or let's do this. They're playing tag, they're working real hard, and they're having some fun in the process. Right? We've done jump competitions in the past. Right? So here, we just set up some hurdles, and we're just trying to get them, probably just hit them all, and try to jump over all the things. All right, these are our coaches playing around before we did it with our athletes, and just working on your takeoff, right? And then we added a ball, and we're like doing like a I don't know, like horse. Like we're trying to do tricks and have people do different stuff. We're getting, I don't know how many jumps we get overall. We get 50 jumps in probably, right? And it's just a way, if you have long jumpers, if you have basketball players, volleyball players who need to work on jumping, and you just warmed up their jumping for the day and had fun doing it. Okay, here we have a bunch of kids, and we have like a max height competition, right? Every time you clear a height, we raise it up 2 or 3 inches. And you'll see some basketball kids getting some wild heights in a second. But again, she plays at Harvard. They're gonna be going to University of Vermont next year for field hockey. DJ, me trying to compete with the kids. I don't get there though. And we just kept going until they couldn't get there anymore. Nicole should be a high jumper, but he's a basketball player. Yeah, and then we're done. Well, again, volleyball, basketball, track, anytime you could jump, those things cost like $10 on Amazon, right? You just slide them up and just keep moving, right? Competitions, having fun, working hard, and we're tricking them into trying hard, right? If you just had them jump on a box or do like a jump, they're not gonna try as hard as they can, but if you make it competitive and make it fun, they're gonna try harder. All right? Talk about our technology. We have timers. We just did these yesterday with our kids in the gym. So we do like a flying 10. They get a 10-yard head start, and then the timer records when they run through. And again, their score gets immediately spit out at them. I tell it to them. We have them on an iPad. So they can see from run to run if they're getting slower, if they're getting faster, right? And from week to week. So we've done it 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row, and they have a score that they're trying to beat each week. So they know they can't dog it, right? If I got 1.1 second this week, and the next week I run 1.4 seconds, either I'm like something's really off or I'm dogging it, right? So then we can reframe that stuff and get them to work harder with basic things. And this could be as easy as a stopwatch or different things that we all have access to. You don't need necessarily electronic gate timers, but if you have access to them, it's helpful. And we have jump mats that we do the same thing with. All right? We play games, right? This is old school American Gladiators, Powerball, right? So 2 teams, offense and defense. One tries to score points by dropping balls into the basket. And American Gladiators, I think they wore football equipment. If you guys remember from the 90s, they used to tackle each other. We don't tackle each other, but being tagged. If a player gets tagged, they have to come back and return home and retrieve another ball. We have dodgeballs and like hula hoops where they have to come get it. And the game is played for a specific time. We usually play for about 90 seconds. And this is agility, right? So agility, change of direction. The kids are working hard. And sometimes it's hard to mimic some of these movements in drills or that effort. And it's kind of more realistic to sport, right? So you can play small-sided games like this as part of your warm-up, right? Again, a fun way just to incorporate some speed and agility without doing kind of basic drills, all right? Here, these are some that I was searching on Instagram. I just really typed in like a hashtag like warm-up games. And you're gonna see just some different stuff. Here's a basketball team. These are kids doing some snatch. This is a national level volleyball team. They're all doing different stuff, but different games. He's got a physio ball, and he's just trying to get it. And these are like grown men, and they're having fun, they're smiling, they're working hard because they want to get them. And it's not really super fancy. It doesn't require a whole lot of thought or equipment, right? Many of these things I try to show you that don't require a lot of stuff. these are holding pennies. One goes, then the other kid has to snatch and go get them. Again, getting them to work hard, having fun, working, moving fast, which I think is a trouble for a lot of kids today, is they don't know how to sprint full speed or how to give full effort. Again, super simple game. And this is, they're a volleyball team, working on single leg stability, working on hand-eye coordination. You know, again, they brought some tennis balls to practice. And here they're working on rotational mobility as they're doing it as well, with adding a little variation to it. So for volleyball, baseball, different things, lacrosse, where you have to rotate from your upper back, a great warm-up drill that also makes it kind of fun versus just doing basic warm-up or stretching drills. All right, we were going to try to play some games, but there's not enough space in here. But these are real simple games. I did some of these this week. We do cone snatch a lot with our athlete population. We do them with our adults too. Bear paw tag is like someone's in a, Christina, come here, I'm going to demonstrate with Christina. Right, really, all it is Christina's going to be in a bear crawl position, and this person's standing up, and I have to try to tag her foot. So if I were to move this way, she would move out of the way. Move this way. So as we're in this position, I give them 10 or 15 seconds to do it. You got kids diving, laying out. Thanks, Christina. You got kids diving, laying out, working really hard. And the kid who's in the bear crawl position, you're getting shoulder strength and stability. You're getting core stability. And if you did it a couple times and then you just rotate through your team, they're getting a lot of reps of that, and they're going to get super warmed up doing that as well. Super simple, right? Doesn't even require any equipment. We could have probably done it here if I didn't want to break the smartboard, but in there. And cone snatch, right? You have a cone in front of each other. We do like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You can do it with movement, and then we blow the whistle. You have to snatch the cone, reaction time drill, and then usually there's like a punishment for losing, jumping jacks or burpees or something like that. And tail tag, like all these games, I can give you like what they kind of are. And I know I kind of sped through it a little bit on purpose because I wanted to leave some time for questions, and we were going to play the games. But for the most part, right, like I said, I own Prime Movement Performance. I do some one-on-one coaching with other kind of coaches in all over right now that own other gyms that are trying to start sports performance facilities who are looking to do some of the things that we just showed you that don't know where to start or how to get them going. And then I post a lot of stuff on Instagram, and then I do like a weekly newsletter every Tuesday where I kind of talk about this stuff pretty regularly. Whether it's how to get athletes faster, how to make them jump higher, how to get them to buy in more, how to program for strength and performance, and different things like that. So that's kind of the way to get in touch with me the most. I'm most consistent with Instagram, I would say. My newsletter kind of is usually pretty consistent, but other things come in play sometimes. Anybody have any questions? I know I kind of sped through it because there's not a lot of time today.
Good question.
Yeah.
So my trainer has our stretch routine, our active stretch routine. And how important do you think it is to hit every single muscle, sweeps and hip mobility, just everything we're doing compared to a warm-up like that where you're not necessarily, hitting every single muscle to try to warm them up, where you just let them play and they just overall get warmed up?
So I mean, there can be arguments for both, and I think over time, I don't think you have to like kind of go through muscle by muscle like that. I mean, we've done stuff like that, and we will throw that stuff in there as well. So let's say we do play a game, and we find that there's something else that we neglected in it. We might do a shortened version of our full warm-up. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that game only takes 6 minutes, and then there's some other stuff that we wanted to hit or do. Let's say if we're working on sprinting that day, and I felt like they need to loosen up their hips a little bit more, then we might do a little bit more extra hip flexibility stuff in there. But I would say if you can get them to warmed up, the whole idea of a warm-up is to literally warm your body up, get a sweat, and get everything working. I mean, some of us are older in here. I'm in my 40s now. That after 30 minutes of moving, I feel a lot better than 10 minutes of stretching, right? If I were to go do a bunch of stuff and get my heart rate up and be moving, I'm way more flexible after I move and do stuff for 30 minutes versus just stretching for 10 minutes. And I think, most of us are going to fall into that category, and young athletes too. Yeah. Good question. Yeah.
Any thoughts or experience with distance athletes, track, cross country?
Yeah, we do have some distance athletes, and I think even still, like, you can play games like Ultimate Frisbee, things like that, where you can get them warmed up with different stuff and do a variety of different things. Because do you do what type of warm-ups or different things you do right now?
Well, just a warm-up jog, and then a lot of movement. A skips, B skips.
Traditional track and field stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say you can still, and I'm not saying get rid of all that stuff completely, right? But you want to make part of that process fun and not monotonous. So you can incorporate that stuff as part of a game and then have them do different drills. So like you can make where we're playing tag or doing relay races where they have to skip or they have to bear crawl or have to do stuff. And you're going to find that they're going to get all the things they need anyway. And then you could still incorporate, your traditional stuff in there as well. And like I said, this part of it is how can we make practice more fun, right? How can we get them to come more frequently? And some schools, I don't know how it is at your school, but at Proctor High School, we don't get great attendance on a regular basis at football practice or basketball practice. There's always something that just doesn't pull them in. So we need to do something to kind of get them engaged and pull them in to make sure they want to come and be there versus just like kids who just want to work hard and want to be there, right? So we're trying to find ways to pull them in with fun activities to make it more enjoyable for them. So I think that's the trick.
Do you find music with some of those, like some of those moving drills are rhythm-based?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and music is huge to them.
Yeah.
And I try to encourage them, look, play music. Like, get some upbeat stuff so that you can kind of like dance moves, something like that. Like,
yeah, there was a warm-up that I didn't put on. Riley said she got distracted because the girls were so tall. But they have like a hop, and then they dance. They have music going, and then in their warm-up, in their volleyball lines, it's like hop, and then they're like shimmy, and they're dancing, and they're hop, and they're doing it to rhythm. And then even with the A skip, if you had a tennis ball, and you just worked like different drills where I'm passing the tennis ball underneath, and just like little things where you can just like make it fun or enjoyable, right? With the tennis ball is super useful, and you could do different stuff. You do bear crawl. We do like crab walk. We'll throw a tennis ball and try to catch it in their opposite hand, and just try to get them to do the things that you're already doing. But how can I make that a different variation of it to make it fun and to make it different? Yeah.
Yeah, so I teach or coach modified sports,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a pretty wide range because I'm a small school, so I have 7th through 9th graders.
Yeah.
Some of my 9th graders are super athletic, and some of my 7th graders have like a 1-inch vert.
Yeah.
So do you have any experience with like leveling these types of things? So, those more athletic kids are pushing themselves, and the younger or less athletic kids are also doing something.
Yeah, the games and races are great, right? Because you can tailor them to that group, right? So if I'm having a race and I notice that kids are slower or whatever, all you have to do is put, the slower kid in front, and then he's the rabbit, right? And then they're chasing him. So I might give him a 2-3 yard head start, and the faster kids are behind, and then it goes off of his movement, right? So he has an advantage. He has 2 advantages. 1, he's in front, and 2, it's his go. Right, it's not your go as the coach. And then they're going to get faster because they're not trying to get caught. Right, and then he's going to get faster because he's trying to catch him. So it works as both ends of the spectrum. So you can just make those creative constraints to the games, or creative advantages, I should say, to help them both get better in the process. Yeah.
What do you say to your athletes about rest and recovery days?
I don't.
You don't? Just
Yeah.
so you can be prepared for the next practice.
We talk about nutrition and sleep like that and stuff like that, but I don't know how much they listen. Because they're on, like we talked about, they're on their phone, right? I've talked to some of these Division I athletes about waking up 5 minutes earlier to eat breakfast, right? How long does it take to scramble eggs and eat like real food for breakfast versus stopping at the coffee shop on your way to school. And we talk about those things, but again, as high schoolers, I don't know how much they're really like taking it in. And if we think about it realistically, you know, like if when you were a kid, you know, some of us who are older, when you were a kid, like how many rest and recovery days did you take? Right? I'd ride my bike like 100 miles a day probably, and then play pickup basketball with my friends, and then go play street hockey, and then go, who knows what else, okay? So we're very adaptable, and I think sometimes we give kids this fragility mindset that their bodies are fragile and that they need to do these sorts of things versus just giving them different stuff, right? So that's where the games come in, or, you know, well, if you're doing cross country or track and field and they're always running straight ahead all the time, you know what would be really good for them to do? Some lateral movements, right? It'll keep them healthy. It'll be more fun for them. They're all going to suck at it, so they can try to do different things, right? And the same thing if you're working with a lot of basketball players or different things like that, where they're always going side to side and they're jumping, maybe do things that are like more linear. You know, basketball is a really hard sport because the court and the constraints there to go really fast in a straight line. Right? They're always doing and weaving, doing different stuff, so maybe having them do more straight ahead stuff. So you want to think about like what you do in kind of buckets, and you want to fill different buckets and see which bucket those kids have that is the most neglected from their day-to-day activities or from the sports they're playing, and then try to fill into that bucket. Right? Versus like if we were tracking, we're always running, or distance, if we're always filling that distance bucket, why don't we fill the sprint bucket a little bit? Can't hurt, right? Probably make them a better distance runner too. Right? If you're faster in the 100, you're faster in the 200, you're faster in the 400, and so on and so forth. All right? But yeah, I mean, the rest and recovery, yeah, I try not to go too much into it because I don't want them to think that they get enough people telling them not to do stuff that I don't want to do that. Like I've had a number of high school girls that their club coach tells them to stop lifting weights because they're getting too muscular. You know, probably not a great thing to tell a bunch of high school girls, right? Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have examples of, like, if you can't beat them, join them? Like, I know with track, you know, the phones are actually pretty useful. Things like high jump, hurdles, pole vault, where, you know, you can film. It's not necessarily apps or anything, but now it's an extra tool, like, that we didn't have. So I'm just...
Yeah, 100%. We use technology in that way too. Sometimes I'll show a kid like, hey, when they're deadlifting and their back is all jacked up and they say they're doing something, definitely I record it and show it back to them. And the thing with that is, it's been, like if you wait to give them feedback, it's not as effective, right? Just like anything. So if you film it, show them right away so they can correct it right away. And I think that's the most important part of filming anything. But because you never know, you know, like in your brain, you think you're doing something a certain way until you actually see it. And I think that's a useful tool, 100%. There are a million apps too to slow it down and do different stuff, but the phones are so advanced now. It's all built in. Awesome. Any other questions? Still got about 5 minutes left. I try to save enough for. Oh, there you go.
So I come from a district where we struggle with numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So constantly either we get rid of the J&E team. What do you do for athletes that commonly play the sport, or like what do you do to give them that buy-in factor? Because they'll be like, no, I'd rather just go home and be on my phone. They'll not play that one sport because you suggested that they should play consistently across the board. But no, I'm just going to focus on softball and then we'll come back to soccer. How do we like get them motivated? I'm a J&E coach, so I struggle with.
Yeah, I think like is the more fun it is, and I think here's where we have to kind of get away from overly focusing on just like the skills of the sport. And I know, trust me, like I coach varsity level football, and we played a state finalist and a state champion last year in our schedule. And we have kids that don't know what a first down is on varsity. Okay? So I know that we have to teach them like the tactics to be able to put something like on the field that's like a relatively decent product, but we also have to step back and be like, okay, how much of this is like really like, do I need to teach them how to kick a soccer ball or do different stuff? Is it really going to hurt us a lot if we spend 15, 20 minutes just kind of having some fun? Do you know what I'm saying? Is it going to really detriment from their development? Because realistically, even for like we focus on the training aspect of it, right? Because I own a gym where we try to get kids to keep coming back. And one of our things, like I said, some of those girls you saw in that video have been coming to me since they were sophomores in high school, and they still come as seniors in college. That's 7 years, right? And they keep coming back because it's enjoyable, right? And the thing that's going to help your program develop the most, or the athletes develop the most, is coming consistently, right? And consistently doing stuff. And the only way to make them come consistently is for them to enjoy it and have fun. So again, I'm going to keep harping on the fun factor, because the more fun things are, the more they're going to come. The more they come, the better they get. The better they get, they win a little bit, which is even more fun, right? So you just keep factoring in that fun factor and keep getting kids to build that consistency and the enjoyment of that coming, and then I think you'll be in a good spot. Yeah.
So how do you respond, because a huge issue for me, I coach varsity soccer, is I've had kids that want to go to concerts and birthdays and whatever the case may be, like very often.
Yeah.
And telling them, oh, well, you're going to sit, the first 20 minutes of a game or the first half of the game, that doesn't really resonate.
Yeah, that doesn't, they don't care. Yeah,
so,
they don't care.
How do you respond to that situation?
I mean, most districts have policies on different stuff, and they kind of will back you in either way. To get kids to buy into not want to skip practice to go to a birthday party, yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would be surprised. High school kids going to birthday parties?
Yeah.
I just told my 10-year-old we're stopping to do kids' birthday parties. Yeah. It stops for a little bit and then it comes back. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if I have a great answer for that one. Yeah.
What about the kids that just want, when you're asked if they're going to play sports, like last year they played, and then this year they don't want to play anymore because now they just want to go to work?
Yeah.
A lot of that now is, and they're buying it because they want to buy materialistic things that they really don't need in their life right now.
Yeah. One of the arguments that I try to have with kids a lot, I don't say an argument or a conversation I have with kids a lot, is that you're not going to get an opportunity, this is, unfortunately for many of us, high school is the only time you get a chance to do all these things, right? And again, if we're trying to build lifelong skills, or we're trying to get kids to have fun and enjoy their youth, right? Playing sports is a part of that, right? So we want to make sure that they are doing that, and I mean, to be honest, I wish I wasn't working right now, right? I wish I didn't start working at 16 or worked all through college. I wish I did more of this stuff and just played. Even as adults, there's research now that free play and doing stuff, how many of us do things just to do them? Anybody? Right? Not very many of us. And as you get older, it's less and less. How many of us just go and play basketball, or go shoot in your driveway, or just go play catch to have a catch, or just do something random? We don't do that anymore, right? And there's something to be said about free play and doing these sorts of things that help us, with young kids, their mental health is really low, right? Because they're stressing out about work, they're stressing out about this thing on social media, they have all these really low, these high depression rates now. So how can we get them to buy into more free play and enjoyment? And again, I think we have to just have those crucial conversations with those kids that want to do that, about thinking about all the things they might struggle with, and then how long term, those are the things that we should be focusing on right now. Trying to reframe. I have a paradigm shift inside of them about reframing kind of what's important now versus, we all work for 50 years. It's terrible. Yeah.
Would you, we micromanage every minute in practice, but it seems like you might be suggesting it would benefit them to build in some freedom within,
Yeah.
if you could.
Yeah,
Come up
100%.
with your own end of the practice, something.
Yeah, you can block in 10, 12 minutes of just do that. We do sometimes in our warm-up, we do 6 to 8 minutes of movement exploration. And we just do somersaults and cartwheels. And then we add different obstacles. We'll do a somersault into a jump over a hurdle, or have the kids try to cartwheel in different directions, or just do random stuff. And we just give it a block of time and get as many somersaults or get as many things as you can in 6 minutes. And then they just play around, right? And they're just playing around with movement. If you've tried to somersault for 6 minutes, Riley won't somersault once. But if you try to somersault or do cartwheels or handstand walk, and they start seeing like other kids do it. Like we have girls that I didn't even know they could do it. Like they'll do like a kick up, and they're doing back bends, and we've done warm-ups where we have them travel 20 yards, and they have to do a different movement every movement. If that makes sense. So they can cartwheel and cover certain down, but they can't cartwheel again. They could broad jump, and they can't do it. You could do it the length of a football field, and every time you move, you have to do a different thing. And the most you can get out of something is like 5 yards. So maybe if you skip on right, skip on left, you can't skip anymore. Right? It's like a freestyle movement prep. You'll see kids, we had kids doing backflips and stuff. I was like, I didn't even know you could do that, right? So you might see some wild stuff that kids can do, and like it's just fun for them to do it. And then they have to think about it too. It gives them that freedom of expression where they have to kind of move through stuff. All right. Yeah, if you have any questions, I mean, all my stuff is here. I'm trying to think, Mom, I didn't put my email up there. But my email is just Anthony, I'm probably not going to remember it, but it's at primemovement.com, or it's that at Gmail too. I have like 7,000 emails these days. I don't even know which one is which. But thank you guys for the questions. Thank you for your attentiveness. It's awesome. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for Monica for reaching out to me to do this. And this is a pretty cool space. Wish it was a little bit bigger so we can play and move stuff, but I didn't want to move all the chairs for the next presenter. But thank you guys. I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy.